Good afternoon. It's good to see everyone. My name is Charles Patrick. I am the Chancellor and Chief Academic Officer here at Penn State Fayette, the Eberly campus. Through the year, I have an opportunity to do a welcome at a number of events, a large number of events. We host typically about 100 events that are not our own at this campus, and part of the reason is because of our wonderful facilities. We're very, very fortunate. And those are always special for me because I'm typically welcoming either high schoolers or middle schoolers or people from the community like yourselves. And it's just always a thrill to see people on this campus, and especially when we have a day that's a little better than yesterday. But this is a type of event I think is critically important to our community, to our region, to the state, where we communicate with each other. And we have some wonderful people here to do just that today, our commissioners and our representatives from Harrisburg. Yesterday, we were with a group that was Senator Stefano's senator for a day, and there were about 180, I believe, 11th graders here who were dressed up nice, went through a series of actions where they split off in groups and did their own bills, and they brought them back together after lunch, and just a fantastic day for them and all the hosts that were there. We really appreciated seeing them. So 2 days in a row, we're glad to host these types of events. I want to conclude with just another welcome. We are so pleased that you're here, and we hope that you have a great time today hearing and listening to folks that are asking questions, and also to our folks that are going to be up here answering those questions. Before I leave, it'd be remiss if not to say, let's please show our appreciation to the Chamber of Commerce for setting this up and doing such a wonderful job with what they've done today. Have a wonderful session. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Connie Slampak. I'm a local business owner, and I am the current president of the board of directors of the Fayette Chamber. On behalf of the board and membership, I want to thank you for attending today's legislative luncheon. These events are so important to our business community. The partnerships that we've created with our local, state, and federal legislators are most important to our business community. And so I want to thank the representatives that have joined us today. We value the legislative process, and we appreciate the opportunity for you to be here today and to talk with the members. Allow me to introduce to you our Executive Director of the Fayette Chamber, Muriel Nuttall.
So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I am so happy to see so many of you here today. The attendance and participation of our members speaks volumes about your desire to see our beautiful county grow and prosper. So I want to take a minute and I want to draw your attention to the sponsors of today's event. I'm going to stress Kathy out. She didn't know that was in there. There it is. So the reason we're able to do these kinds of events is that businesses like those, organizations step up and support the work that we do. Please join me in thanking them. Just to give you a quick overview of the program, kind of how it works today, we will first hear from our good friend Aaron Riggleman, the Manager of Government Affairs to the PA Chamber. I am so happy that you're able to join us today. Found out that he grew up in Westmoreland County, so he's a friend in southwestern Pennsylvania, even if he is living over in Harrisburg right now. He's like one of us. Following him, we'll invite our Fayette County Commissioners to the stage to answer some questions. Following them, we'll ask our state legislature forward to answer some questions, and then we'll open it to some questions from the floor. So a little bit different than previous years. I know that there are many people on the floor who have already sent me questions, and those I have printed and handed back to them. And there are some folks here that have some questions that were presented for us to ask. So we'll kind of roll through those. I try to keep these events very casual, very comfortable. The really incredible thing about our area is that we're all friends. So somebody said, I'll be so nervous asking a question. There's no reason to be nervous. We're all friends in this room. So all very good questions and all questions that are very important to the business community. The only thing I would ask is that we try to keep the questions and the answers pretty succinct. There are quite a few questions out there, and we'd like to get through as many as possible. Additionally, we always invite our federal representatives here as well. They were unable to make it, but we typically have representatives in the room for them. And I can tell you that Sean Conway, he's going to wave. See him over there? He is here for Guy Reschenthaler. And Robbie Matisik was supposed to be here from Bob Casey's office, but she tested positive for the flu last night, and so I told her I didn't want her to share that with us. So what I can tell you is that we have a direct line. We talk. If you need to speak to someone from those federal offices, we can help make that happen. Never be afraid to call and say, I need to talk to someone. We'll get you to the right person. If you need to talk to Sean, to conclusion today, I'm sure he would welcome a conversation. Now, all of that behind us, we'll move forward. So allow me to introduce to you Aaron Riggleman from the Pennsylvania Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Mariel. For those of you who do not know me, as Mariel mentioned, I'm Aaron Riggleman, and I'm a member of the Government Affairs team at the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry. And for those of you who aren't familiar, the PA Chamber is the largest broad-based business advocacy organization in the Commonwealth. We represent 10,000 members, from sole proprietors to Fortune 1 companies in every industry and every county in the Commonwealth. We strive every day to make Pennsylvania the best state in the United States to do business. Needless to say, we have a lot of work to do, but we're comfortable that, we're confident in the next couple of years we're going to make significant progress. Before I started, I wanted to thank the Fayette Chamber and Mariel for being such strong partners of ours. We know the business community is stronger when we speak with one voice, when we're connected from small local businesses to national corporations. We have a shared interest, and we appreciate that and look forward to our partnership moving forward and coming back next year. So I hope that today to touch on our top 3 priorities at the state level as it pertains to the business community, and then hopefully, if I don't yap too long, to take a couple questions from the crowd on the governor's budget or any of the things that may be impacting you. So the first priority, the corporate net income tax in Pennsylvania was reduced a couple years ago to $4.99 by 2032. That's the first reduction that we've seen in decades. It was quite the fight. But we understand that 11 other states since then have reduced their corporate net income tax. And Pennsylvania cannot just, keep up, stay in the race. We need to win the race. And in order to do that, we should cut deeper and faster and accelerate the CNI in half the time to hit $4.99 by 2026. This is something that the governor supported. It was actually he was the first candidate to support this. It was actually at the PA Chamber annual dinner when he was running for office. He has yet to propose that in either one of his budget proposals, but we're hopeful going forward to get that passed. It passed out of Senate Finance bipartisanly. It passed as an amendment to a bill in the House with 188 votes, which is very significant. Unfortunately, the House then amended the CNI and NOLs, which I'll talk about in a moment, into a bill with combined reporting. And we have testimony from the Council on State Taxation that says that version of combined reporting would be the most punitive tax on businesses in the entire nation. So needless to say, we want CNI done, but it should be done without poison pills like combined reporting, especially this version. But we're confident that moving forward, we'll be able to get that done. The second priority this year is sort of a niche topic that not a lot of people know about, and it's net operating losses. So I don't have to explain to this crowd, a lot of times when you're a business Year one, you see significant loss, especially high-cost startups. Year two, you might break even. And year three, if you're lucky, you'll make a profit. Well, in every state and the federal level, except for Pennsylvania and New Hampshire, you can deduct 80% of those losses off of your profits in profitable years and pay a lower effective tax rate. Well, in Pennsylvania, that's 40%. We're the only state below the federal cap. So you can imagine as a startup looking where to start, especially in the fields that we want to attract to Pennsylvania, like robotics and innovation and technology, that is a deterrent on day one. Pennsylvania is last in entrepreneurship and new businesses of any state in the United States. And policies like this are, big red lights to businesses that are looking to start. Again, that passed, I believe, unanimously, at least broad bipartisan support out of Senate Finance last year. Similarly, 172 votes in the House. So we're confident this session that we can see that go through the finish line. And the last issue that we're focusing on this year, and my personal favorite or least favorite, depending on how you want to look at it, is permitting reform. We supported Senate Bill 350 by Senator Kristen Phillips Hill out of York County, York County, last year. It passed the Senate with bipartisan support, and it does a couple of things. First, it establishes permit timelines and makes those trackable to the applicants. If you order a pizza from Domino's, you can open the app and you can see from the point it's flour on the counter to the point it's a steamy hot pizza on your front door. And yet we have multi-million and billion-dollar permits that applicants have no idea where they are in the process. That doesn't work in the private sector, and it certainly shouldn't work in government. The second piece of that legislation is enabling third parties to review applications. This is not a novel concept. When you get your car inspected, you don't have to take it to PennDOT. You take it to a local mechanic that's been deemed to be adequate in evaluating your car's safety. If the government is not capable of giving an up and down on permits in time, then we should enable experts in their field to evaluate permits and issue a decision. The third piece is deemed approved. This makes the government have a skin in the game. The governor, to his credit, initiated a program that if you don't get a decision in time, you'll get your money back. But from the businesses I've talked to, they don't want their $500 application fee back. Although they appreciate it, they want their permit. That's the end of the day. If you don't get your permit, getting your money back is not adequate. And so deemed approved says that if these timelines that have been established are not met, your permit will be deemed approved and you'll be ready to start your project the day after the deadline is reached. U.S. Steel, as you all know, left, decided not to come to Pennsylvania and went to Arkansas. And Arkansas's governor said during his press conference announcing the new construction that U.S. Steel could have a plant built and operational in Arkansas before they could have a permit decision in Pennsylvania. That's hundreds and hundreds of jobs, billions of dollars in revenue that was shut down because of government bureaucracy. That cannot happen, and we're hopeful that Senate Bill 350 will get to the finish line. And just one more quick anecdote on that story. We had a developer that wanted to develop housing in central Pennsylvania, and they applied for an application in PA. At the same time, they applied for an application in Wilmington, Delaware. Needless to say, a few months ago, they had their ribbon cutting in Delaware, and in Pennsylvania, they've yet to reach a decision on their permit. That's just a couple of stories on why this is so problematic. And so with that said, I appreciate the time today, and I would be remiss if I didn't point out that there's a lot of struggles in Harrisburg. We're dealing with the most anti-business House of Representatives we've had in decades, and they have passed some of the most egregious bills that you can imagine. Whether they intentionally or unintentionally will impact businesses. But the lawmakers in Fayette County have stood strong, and that's not easy to do with the pressure that they have. Representative Ryan Warner, I've been a friend of mine and a mentor for a couple of years, and Charity, in her first year, Charity had a 100% voting record with the Pennsylvania Chamber. That's pretty impressive. And Ryan with a 97%. So got a little bit of work to do, Ryan, but we'll take 95. You've been there a few extra years. And then, of course, Senator Stefano, he enjoys a pro-growth majority in the Senate. Hopefully we keep that next year, but that doesn't make their job any easier. They've been the backstop for legislation. It helps us sleep at night knowing these bills stand no chance of passing the Senate. We certainly don't take that for granted and appreciate. And we cite often Senator Stefano's bill on marijuana for workplace safety in light of the governor's call for recreational marijuana. We'd like to see Senator Stefano's bill passed into law before we see any expansions to the marijuana program, and we appreciate that. So with that, I'm happy to take any of your questions on the things I've talked about or anything that might be impacting or if you have any stories to tell about your business that might be helpful in the work we do, we appreciate that.
Yeah, Menards, they actually made the agreement with us here in the county with the redevelopment authority on property out here on the other side of the Uniontown. And the same week that they made it in Morgantown, West Virginia. Morgantown's been in operation, excuse me, Morgantown's been in operation for a long time. 7.5 months later, I finally got a hold of the DEP director locally and got it approved, but it was 7.5 months later, and the comment from one of the developers internal in Menards is, why would we come to Pennsylvania? Simple as that.
Yeah, and this region in particular, as close as you are to West Virginia, is the ones that are going to suffer from this decision. You have Ohio and West Virginia. If they're out competing us, then this is the region that's going to be impacted, certainly. Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Darrell Becker. I'm the president of Fayette County Farm Bureau, and I wanted to let you know I'm glad to hear that there's something being done at permitting, and I want everybody to realize that this is not just business. We have 2 Fayette County Farm Bureau members. One of them has a game farm, and another one raises trout. You can believe that they are 10 miles apart, and it takes the guy who wants to buy the trout almost a year to get the trout from someone who's 10 miles away and has them sitting in a tank. Now, one of the things that the Farm Bureau does is we are the voice of agriculture. We've been trying to fight this too, so if you want any of our additional input, we'd be glad to help you. Thank you.
Absolutely. We appreciate that. There's 2,000 licenses, certificates, and permits that the government issues in all of their departments combined. And we never advocate for getting rid of permits, but we know that businesses are resilient. They just want to know what the rules are and how they can follow them and not have them ever changing and be untimely. So we appreciate that. That's frustrating. All right. Thank you.
Some in the audience who might have had questions that didn't want to ask for some reason. My goal is to finish up a couple of minutes early, so if anyone does have a question, they can catch Aaron before he leaves, and the same with Sean as well. All right, so thank you. And let's move on to our local conversation. So we would ask our commissioners to come on up on stage.
Hi, I'm Scott Dunn. I'm just starting my second term as Fayette County Commissioner. I'm sure a lot of the things that I have prepared will be answered as questions come in. The one thing I did want to say was, politicians use the word "I" a lot. I did this, I did that, and I want to switch that around. And because we have a very small staff at the commissioner's office, each of us has a chief of staff. We have Mark Rayful, who's in economic development. We have a couple other people who work with grants and things like that, and planning and zoning. But the reality is our staff is quite small. So we have what I call external staff. And we can't do this without you guys. And there are so many organizations here today, and I'm going to mention a few. And if I don't mention you, I'm sorry. But I just, we work with all of you, and it has to happen that way. We need you guys. We need your expertise in your field. You know, we work with FAPEN a lot. Go Laurel Highlands, the WIB, PIC, the Farm Bureau, PennDOT. We work very closely with PennDOT. All of our authorities who work on infrastructure. I know North Fayette's here, the North Fayette Water. So we really, and I wanted to say thank you for collaborating with us and for allowing us, you know, to build these relationships, because without it, we can't make Fayette County a better place.
Thank you. I'm Vince Vacides, and thanks to the Chamber for having this. I think it's a good event every year. I look forward to it. It keeps growing and improving each year. And thank you for all the effort you put forth, the Chamber and the board. Glad to be here. I've been around a long time. This is my 25th year as commissioner, and I feel like I did when I first started, when I was 35 years old, and no gray hair, and I have that high energy level and enthusiasm every day to go in and just do what I can to make Fayette County a better place. And you know, I have really driven, because I have a family that's going to be here the rest of their lives, my 2 sons and my granddaughter, and I want to make sure Fayette County is the best it can be before I leave this job. And you know, as Scott said, we work with everybody. You know, that's how you get things done. You work with any entity that wants to meet you halfway, and you know, the job's full time, and to really make a difference, if you're working with these entities and they're making progress, and you can get them across the finish line and improve your county, then you've done your job. So I do that every day, and I think we have a really good relationship with all the entities in this room, and we want to continue to improve that and build on that. So looking forward to this term. We have a lot of things priority-wise we're working on, which I'm sure some of the questions will identify those, but we've got our priorities in place, and new priorities pop up, and we add them to the list. But I think Fayette County is in a good place right now, and we just need to keep moving forward. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Dave Lohr, Commissioner Lohr, starting in my 9th year. I want to thank Penn State Fayette Campus also for hosting this, along with the Chamber. It's always a good time to come back here to the campus, that we have such a prime thing here through Penn State University here at the campus. It's one of our jewels in the county. Been here since 1962, so it's got a lot of life, a lot of history there. And I went to school here myself, so very special to me to be here. Like my fellow 2 commissioners, thank you to all the entities that are here, all the municipalities, and also our legislators and our senators that you know, we are a big group working hard together. And for many decades, that didn't take place. It seemed like everyone was out on their own. But I've noticed over the 8 years plus the few months here into my 9th year, that there's been more interaction, more working hand in hand instead of going off on your own. I know the Chamber is a prime example of that. They've been just a huge benefit to us, and doing great things with the funding and mechanisms and things that come into the Chamber. But when I look around also the municipalities, when we started the infrastructure bank here just recently over the last couple of years, that infrastructure bank works very well with the authorities and also the municipalities to help them get their projects in line, and to have a funding mechanism that's easier, much easier, than going to the state for grants and for the different areas that they have involved. So we as a Commissioners Board have been working hard to keep that unity going with all the different programs, all the different services out there, and planning to continue to do that. So looking forward to it, and looking forward to your questions. All yours. Muriel?
All right. So I'm going to kind of hang down here for a couple minutes. I was texting you to say, Mark, please bring me that microphone. And Dave finished, so I had to stop. All right. Am I turned on? Oh, yeah, it works. Okay. So Ted Martin is here, and he has a question regarding workforce. So Ashley's going to bring the microphone, and then if you'll just identify yourself and where you're from, and then you can ask the question. As far as coming back, really, whoever wants to answer it, don't feel like everybody has to answer all the questions. Okay?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ted Martin. I'm the Director of CareerLink Operations for the Pennsylvania CareerLink. And I represent the Westmoreland Fayette Workforce Investment Board as well as the Providency Council. The question this morning is, our business owners in Fayette County continue to struggle to fill positions with qualified employees. I understand that workforce is not directly in your purview, but in terms of building Fayette, what are you doing to make sure that our businesses can succeed?
Sure. I think workforce is in our purview because as we are trying to attract businesses to Fayette County, that is basically one of the two things that they're asking about. The first thing, as Aaron talked about, was the corporate structure, taxes, and all that fun stuff. The second one is workforce. And I think what you're seeing in the last few years, in 2019 when I started, our workforce participation rate was about 52%, which is like 10% lower than the federal average. We have ticked that up to about 55% right now. So what we have to do is we have to have education and training on all levels. Whether you are an adult going back to figure something out, whether you are a student, I'd like to keep students local to Fayette County and have them trained and educated here so that when, and then it's our job to have places that they can go to work. And stay here locally. And one thing about population loss, I believe population loss right now is starting at the college choice because people, have all the colleges that you can go to, this is the only one that you can stay at right now in Fayette County. So it's real important that we boost education and boost training in Fayette County on all levels. We have to make this happen. We have to be able to specialize it towards the jobs that are here in Fayette County as well. So those are the two things that I see. The third thing is it's not enough to have education and training at the higher level. We also need to be in our schools at an earlier age. We need organizations. So I talked about the need to work and collaborate with places. We need the East End United Community Center. We need One Voice, One Community. We need Verticals in Brownsville. We need all of these places training our kids, and this is a Washington, D.C. word, navigating our kids to a better outcome. Make it a positive thing. Let's inspire our children to want to become more educated and get them on a path that they or that they will a more positive path. So those are all the things that are happening right now in Fayette County. Again, it's more education, more navigating, and then it's our job to have careers here for them.
Just to add, we work very close with the chamber. With the Workforce Investment Board, we work with them to choose people for this board that have a business background, and there's some other aspects of the citizenry that have to be on there as well. So we work hand in hand. We've got outstanding board members that really participate and try to make a difference. It's a real challenge. Workforce investment, workforce development is key to economic development. It's really the number one issue right now with economic development. Getting people into these jobs that are vacant, that these businesses are struggling so hard for, and training and educating and working with the business community to create, the jobs of the future that are going to be needed. So it's a real challenge, and we take a real active role. And I know we have to work with the federal mandates and the federal laws that are that come along with the Workforce Investment Board. But we are active in it. We attend the meetings every month, and we've had some good spinoff from that. One that I want to mention that's I think has been successful is the Truck Drivers Institute out at the Conazole Joseph Hardy Airport. They've trained probably 50, 75 to 100 people that got the training and passed their CDL, and now they have great jobs, good family sustaining jobs. So that's just one example of the success we've had. But the CTIs are very important. Not everybody has to go to college, to get a good job. There's a lot of need for skilled workforce training, and there's a tremendous amount of jobs that are out there that young people can stay in Fayette County, and so we have to diversify our efforts. And we work very close with the Private Industry Council. They've been a real asset in the Workforce Investment Board, and the focus has to remain there now, from this point now into the future.
I'll just be real quick. Here at the campus, I've talked with the chancellor already and the staff. There's a few programs that are not 2 or 4 year degrees, but they're certifications that they're working on here, so that the workforce has the ability, even living here as kids, can actually train early to help fill those areas. And some of the areas too that deal with the workforce is that the housing issue, the FAPEN did a study here just this past year that proved to show where we need a lot of housing to help work that workforce, to draw people in. And that's a big factor too, that if we can get some of these areas covered, even started to be covered by developers and different ones to build housing, to make things easier for people to move here, then that also helps with the workforce also, because everyone seems to have the same problem. There's a lot of help wanted signs out there. And hopefully we can start dropping that down some and increasing the workforce. So just thank you for that question. Hard question, thank you.
Erica Miller, I think you have a question. She'll bring you a microphone. Hang on.
Thanks. First of all, before my question, I'd like to thank the commissioners for their support of the State Theater. We truly appreciate it. But I'm also a member of the Board of Directors for the Chamber, so this question is under that hat. As a chamber, we've taken a stance to be positive and proactive about growth and development throughout Fayette County. Can you each briefly tell us your priorities and plans for growing Fayette through the upcoming years?
Briefly? Are you kidding? Well, years ago, like 8 and a few months ago, I stood on the stage, and the question that came from the chamber at the time was, what would you do to change the attitude of the county? And I remember standing there, and I was the first one up out of 6, and talk about a hard question. That is a hard question, and you just ask a hard question. Well, at that point, I could remember in the mornings I would go into Martin's food store and get a donut every morning. That was breakfast. Every morning I would look at people, and eventually I started smiling at them, and they started smiling back. And there's a story that James Dobson talked about one time, and I don't know how true it was or not, but it was a good story. And that is the attitude of the people around you. And what it consisted of is that this man pulled into a service station, got out to get the gas pumped, and that was in the days when they pumped the gas. He was pumping the gas, and the guy asked the attendant, what are the people like here? And his comment was, well, what were the people like when you left? Or the place that you left, because he left, he changed jobs, he was moving to a different place. And he said they were the most miserable, no good for nothing people that I could stand. I didn't want anywhere around them, and I was so happy to leave. And the attendant said, they're here too. Okay? Next guy pulls in and they're still pumping gas at the first car. The second car gets out and he says, well, you know, it's the same kind of story. I just moved from my one place and I'm moving here for a new job. What are the people like? And the same reply, what were they like where you left? And he said, they were wonderful. He said, I hated to leave. They were the greatest people in the world. And he said, they are here. The first guy heard it and he said, wait a minute, whoa, what happened here? You just now told me that they were the worst. He says, it all depends on who you're looking at. When we decide in ourselves to change ourselves, just like I said, I used to smile at everyone that walked into when I was walking into Martin's. People started smiling back. When you change the attitude of an area with the people that are here, your change goes to that attitude. And I believe over the last years that we've seen that happen because of the positive initiative program that we've set up. There's, you know, we have several people in this room right now because of that positive mentality that's been set, that they are actually pushing out, I'm not sure how many contacts, but contacts all over the country of how great this place is. And that's what it's all about. And I believe that falls back into the workforce, that it actually draws people back into the workforce too, if we know what we have, and we have the best. I'm not saying that because I'm a commissioner. I'm saying that because I like to travel around, but I always come home. I always come home. And that's what it's all about, is in the future to continue that attitude, to continue making people realize how wonderful this place is. Every month I have a program, What Good's Happening in Fayette County on WMBS. And I've had a business on there, I think I'm into my 4th year now with this, 4th or 5th year. And I bring a business in that's local. Many of them they've started here, they've kept their business here, and they've grown here, and others have moved in. And that's what it's all about, is the attitudes that we have, even sitting in this room right here, how we're going to relay that to people outside. And we're not, that bad word, and I don't say it, Fayette. I don't say it. So we all need to say the same thing. A state trooper was walking in the courthouse with me a few months ago, and he said it, and I said, we don't say that anymore. We aren't that group anymore. And that's the attitude that we have to have, a positive, good, happy, and also very proud to be here. Thank you.
Good question. I think Fayette County has turned the corner with long-term growth and development. I've seen it during my tenure. Fayette Penn came into existence, I believe, back in 1992. I started in 96. When I first became a commissioner, we didn't have many fully infrastructured, site-ready business parks. Now we do. And we have several others that are, we're expanding and going to other areas to develop them. We even taken it to the next step. Fayette Penn's done a lot of that, is they've started to build spec buildings, which have attracted employers. Not only do you need to have a site-ready park with water and sewage and all the infrastructure, but now you need to have the spec building that attracts the industry there. We're doing that. We took kind of a role on in economic development in the late 90s out off Route 40, the Fayette County Business Park. That was a cornfield, and it ended up being, it's nearly filled up now, and it has over 1,000 jobs, 47 employers, and over $115 million in private investment. And now we're developing an expansion of that park over off of Northgate Highway, a property that we bought off the Sisters of St. Basil. And that'll be a 75-acre park. That's helped us build tax base and create jobs, commercial type jobs. And that cycle will continue. So I think we can compete economically. We realize we have a shortage of housing, so we're adding a housing component in that business park expansion. It's called Thompson's Crossing. And we're able to receive $2.5 million from RCAP funding through the governor and our senator and legislators. The chamber has been a big help in all this. They're working hand in hand with these organizations that I've mentioned. So I think we're on the right track. We just got to keep building on that. And what I've seen lately, which I can't elaborate on, but there's a lot of interest in Fayette County from employers, companies wanting to come here. It's really gone to the next level. So we have a lot of interesting things coming in the future.
So I'm going to echo one of the things that Dave brought up was attitude. And one of my sayings is the hardest thing to change is an attitude. And we see that happening now. The amount of private building, private investment going on right now in Fayette County, I believe we're already turning the tide. These are not government-funded projects. We can't sit up here and take credit for it. There are companies out there building and expanding in Fayette County right now because they see the growth potential in Fayette County. And I can tell you that while we may have our own detractors here locally, in Harrisburg, the reputation of Fayette County is that we are hungry for growth and ready to pounce. And that's from them telling me that. That's not from, those are the secretaries of some of the departments and things like that. So it's exciting. What we need to do, and I'm going to leave out the building the workforce because we already covered that. But one of the things that we need to do is continue to build infrastructure, and that's not just water and sewage. That is also power. We need to build sites with the adequate amount of power to bring the manufacturers to Fayette County, and it also includes broadband, because if we don't have broadband in Fayette County, we are not going to see the amount of building and the amount of new businesses that we could possibly attract. So as we try to attract new businesses, there are supporting industries, and they've both been brought up. It's education and housing. We need to make sure that we are on board with both of those. And these things aren't in silos. These things aren't, well, if you do this, now you got to jump over here and do this. You can have one business affect another industry. So, hypothetically, you bring in a manufacturer whose raw materials at agricultural products. Well, now you've hit two of our business sectors. If you're looking at somebody coming to Fayette County and they recognize the great health care that's now available in Fayette County, that helps promote Fayette County. Tourism helps promote Fayette County to businesses coming here. They want to attract their employees to a place where they can go do things outdoor. So it's not just one thing, it's everything. So we have to continue promoting ourselves. We have to promote the opportunities there in Fayette County. As Vince says, we do have business parks available. We also have raw land, brownfields, which are a very hot topic federally. We have things that no place else has, and that is available transportation. I call it the 3 R's: rivers, roads, and rails. Available to these business sites. And we are located right now, if you draw a 500-mile circle around Fayette County, we are within 140 million Americans. So our location is prime for trucking and transportation. So those are the things that we keep promoting, and we are seeing more activity. I know Earl from Fayette Penn always talks that he has had more activity on potential people coming to Fayette County in the last year than he had in every other year combined. So we are at an exciting time, and I know we're not going to rest until we see the economy of Fayette County rebound, and there you go.
And I want to add air to that, the 3 R's plus the A, because the air is the other part of it. There's studies out there that have shown that with air travel, with air capabilities, I know the Latrobe Airport, in particular the Arnold Palmer Latrobe Airport, actually increased $223 million of revenue in 1 year. So air is so important. This runway out here needs to be expanded, and the airport needs to actually be uplifted to an area, and that's one of my that's my highest project on my list for the next 4 years is that airport.
Awesome, thank you. I know Dave Artis is here from Chestnut Ridge Counseling. There he is over there. I think we're going to switch gears a little bit.
Hi, I'm Dave Artis from Chestnut Ridge Counseling. I'm the Chief Operations Officer. For those of you who don't know, Chestnut Ridge has opened its doors in Fayette County in 1968. We employ 226 employees and provide mental health care for over 7,000 residents of the county. Our question is, between the COVID funds and the opioid settlement monies that have come in to the county, the much needed money that has come into the county, what is the strategy to utilize those funds?
So to the CARES Act, we received $11 million in June of 2020, and we had to spend it by December of 2020. We were able to put $5.3 million into broadband locally. There were a number of other you're making me go back a few years in my memory bank here. There were some other things that we did, and one of them was for nonprofits. I know we did money for certain municipalities, fire departments, police departments, EMS, and people that were struggling. We needed to make sure that we kept some of those doors open. Now with the ARPA money, a lot of the projects that we did were internal, and we were allowed to do that. Some of those were things that were happening at the courthouse, and one of them, as an example, was the roof. We had a 3-layer roof that the water was coming through all 3 layers. We have a historic structure there, and Vince always thinks I'm chirping at him, but I'm not. I mean, the county just never had the money to keep up with the demands of this historic structure. So some of that money was used there. Some of the money went to some of those infrastructure projects that we talked about. I know North Union Township had a sewage project that was about $2.3 million. And there are some other projects in there. I know we dedicated some of that also to broadband, and I'm trying to think of anything else. 1.5.
A lot of it, our ARPA money went to infrastructure. But we did give some to City Mission, and we also gave some to the fire departments in Fayette County. I think $1.5 million they got. But most of it was for infrastructure and, as Scott said, structural things that we needed to fix with our historic courthouse, which we did that. And we also gave some money to broadband from the ARPA money as well. So we've probably, with the Redevelopment Authority in the county, with our CARES Act and ARPA money, plus what the Redevelopment Authority has given to it, we've invested over $10 million into broadband. We have an application in for state funding next, and then we'll have a federal application. So hopefully we'll be able to get several more $1 million to complete our project.
Yeah, on that broadband in particular, that was one of our high priorities, especially with the school districts when the people weren't able to actually have their kids go to school and they needed to get online. We did it, as I called it, the backbone. And we had a company from Markleysburg, Vitalink Q-Call. They did a lot of our work, and they ran the fiber clear out to the end. In fact, we have a hot spot at a church that is a mile away from, or half a mile away from, the West Virginia border. And that then proved to be able to be a good backbone for them to come back through and then add more broadband. So that's how kind of like we started our broadband package. And ironically, the grant that Vince talked about that we applied for, that board that's in the state level for that grant actually talked about that concept, going to the end where no one has it, and then coming back through. And that's the whole concept that we built our ARPA money on, in particular, we moved on with that as far as with redevelopment authority. And as we speak, and if this is taking a question away from broadband somewhere down the road, I'm sorry, I'm going to steal it already. Currently, as we speak, there is a very large loop of fiber that's working around the county all the way down to Brownsville, Washington Township, going back down the river all the way to Point Marion and back up 857. So we're trying to loop everything and we also had restrictions on how we could spend that money and when we had to spend it. There was a time element on it. And that's what we did. And one of the infrastructure problems at the courthouse was in the back of the courthouse. It's much better looking than it used to be, but there was a reason for it too. Erosion, water drainage, everything that was taking place behind the courthouse was washing the main wall out behind the courthouse. And we were able to use some of that ARPA money to rebuild that and make the courthouse presentable. I believe that it's our responsibility as commissioners to make sure that our county seat, that our courthouse is presentable to anyone who comes into this county, especially businesses. If a business walks in and we live in a dump, what do we look like? So that was one thing that we did do, is we upgraded all that area with the infrastructure.
And I will say, one of the things that I'm very proud to do is when we have visitors come, I say, how would you like a tour? And they, when they see courtroom number 1, they are just amazed, so, yeah.
It is amazing. It is beautiful. So we have just about 4 minutes left before we transition over to our state legislators. So I know that we have one more question I believe Ashley is going to ask on behalf of a couple of our organizations. Go ahead, Ash.
Hi. So substance abuse and suicide numbers remain very high in Fayette County. These issues have a domino effect on so many facets of the community, from workforce to education and more. How are you working with the organizations whose mission it is to try and conquer these issues?
So first, our main organization is the Fayette County Drug and Alcohol Commission, and we are working with them very closely on spending the money that we received in the opioid settlement, which is, we received about $850,000 a year, and we'll receive that for, I believe, 18 years. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to set up sustainable programs. We didn't want to go and say, okay, we're spending money on this year, and then every year go, what are we spending our money on? So I wanted year after year sustainable programs, and then we covered there was a list of things that you could spend the money on. Basically, it was prevention and training and treatment and recovery. So what we did is we took our opioid money and we invested it in, the prevention and training. Basically, you could have put a broad blanket over Fayette County and said, if you are addicted, here's who you call. What we did is we took a different tact. We went directly at the audiences that needed treatment. And those are, so we have 3 target audiences. The first one are the people in the Fayette County Jail. We know that primarily the reason they're there is for drug issues. And if you're not there for drug issues, you were out stealing something for drug issues. So we're putting significant money into programs at the new Fayette County Jail, which we kind of needed the new one to have the room to do it. One of the programs is called Ignite, and it's being introduced later this month by Sheriff Custer. We will be the first county in the state of Pennsylvania to have a reentry program called Ignite. I know the Private Industry Council just received a grant. They're going to be in our jail, making sure that the people don't repeat and people get off drugs, and then we don't want them back. Okay, so that's A. B is, so that's the one. The second one is we have a program for homeless people, and homeless people and mental health kind of go hand in hand, and we're working with City Mission on that program. And the third target audience are people who literally overdosed today. If there's an overdose happening right now in Fayette County, and an EMS is showing up and administering Narcan, they're going back later that day, and they are trying to work with people to get them back into recovery or into treatment immediately. So that is a target audience that we know desperately needs it. And the stats from that, we anticipated 12% success rate, which sounds really low, but you have to remember you're dealing with people in active addiction. The success rate last August, there were 71 overdoses. They found 44 of them, because not everybody wants to be found. They found 44 of them. 21 of those people went into treatment. So we have about a 33% success rate and about a 50% success rate if we find them. So those are the three target audiences. Those are the three things we're trying to do to mitigate the drug epidemic.
To kind of cut you off, but it's 1 o'clock, and I kind of know that all three of you are combined on that effort in substance abuse.
I say this?
Yeah, go ahead, Vince.
There's no doubt I participate every meeting of the Drug Overdose Task Force, and opioid deaths are on the rise, so we cannot lose focus of this major problem.
Absolutely.
And I think we've invested well in our opioid settlement monies. I think we're going to get $18 million over the next 10 or 15 years, and we're going to keep putting it into something that makes a difference, and we're going to gauge these programs to make sure they work.
Thank you. So
I'm going to take 30 seconds.
Okay.
One thing, though, that I want you all to understand, I'm going to flip kind of back to one of my answers already, and that is that we are not the only county that's got the problem. Don't think that way. Everyone does, and there's even more out there that's worse. So just remember that. It's a problem across the whole country, and we're no different. Thank you. I was only going to take 30 seconds.
Please help me in thanking them. So we'll follow kind of the same procedure we did before. Take just a second and introduce yourselves. You guys have a lot of questions in the room today. So I will tell you, I talked about this as I walked around to the tables. One of the things that I would never do, and they know that, it's part of the trust we all have, is I always want to make sure that they're prepared for the questions that are going to be posed to them. So as you fed me your questions, I made sure and sent them forward so that they had appropriate answers for you. And I know there are a lot of them, so we'll do like succinct answers at best. And as I said before, some of these are directed particularly at individuals, so you can answer those. You all don't feel like you have to answer every question. It's whatever you're comfortable with. Again, all family, all friends here. All right, so start where you'd like.
I am Charity Grim-Kruba. I'm the state representative for the 51st District.
Let me switch you microphones. I think the battery might be dead in that one.
Is this working?
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
I'm Charity Grim-Krupa. I'm state representative for the 51st House District, which is essentially southern Fayette County. I am a freshman member, but I can tell you I'm a lot more comfortable being here now than I was at this time last year. I really felt like a fraud. I was just a few months in. I've learned so much in the last year. So if you don't know me, I grew up a farm kid. I'm still farming with my husband and our 3 children. I'm a lawyer by trade. Please don't hold that against me. Never thought that I'd be on this side of politics, but you know, what do they say about if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. So this was not part of my plan, but it's been a wonderful opportunity to serve. And when I say that I've learned a lot in the last year, part of that has been the Harrisburg side, and a big part of that has been district side. And as somebody that was new to this position, I want to be educated all the way around an issue. And my staff and I have really worked hard to get out into the community and to meet people, to meet different agencies, to meet business owners, and that has helped me. For example, we were in a policy hearing. The committees that I serve on are Veteran Affairs, Ag and Rural Affairs, Agriculture and Rural Affairs, Human human services and children and youth. And in one of the human services committee hearings we had recently, they started talking about centers of excellence. And because my staff and I had done a meeting with Crossroads, I had that firsthand knowledge about how the centers of excellence were working locally and what were their strengths and where they could need some assistance. So for all of you in the room, because you are all very important stakeholders. If I have not had an opportunity to meet with you yet one-on-one and to learn about what you do, please reach out to my office and I'd love to schedule that. I have a laundry list. Dawn is my district office manager and we will work with you because I want to learn more. I talk a lot, so I'm going to pass this on to Pat.
I didn't notice. Hi, Senator Pat Stefano. So glad you could be here today. Welcome to my alma mater. This is where I went to school. Well, I was working full-time, so I was not your traditional student, but this campus is great for the community, so I'm glad to be sitting here again. As you heard, we hosted Senator for a Day yesterday. We brought 17 school districts in, and they had a blast sitting in your seats debating bills. They had a lot of fun with that, and they just chattered the whole way home, and I got lots of texts. So it was wonderful. The campus opened up for us, and I'm glad to be here. Just a couple seconds on an update. So you know that I'm chairman of the Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure Committee now. So I have oversight over the PUC and all the utility issues, dealing with things like what we're facing with the rolling blackouts that are coming. We're trying to phase that out, make sure that doesn't happen. So you're going to hear me talk about that a lot in the future as we're working on different projects and possibilities. And also have working with the Department of State and the BPOA, that's all the 29 licensing boards, in dealing with issues. Knowing that architects and interior designers don't get along. So I've learned all these things. And I know that we're not gonna get to all your questions today, so what I wanted to let you know is I'm always available. You'll find me at a lot of the chamber functions, or just call, email, drop me a line, and we'll get your questions answered and make sure we're aligning Pennsylvania. My whole goal of being here is to put Pennsylvania on top of the list and not at the bottom. And that's, I can see it's happening in Fayette, and I want now Pennsylvania to be that way.
Thank you, Senator. So Charity felt like she didn't belong here. She got 100%. I'm here with this 97. Aaron, what do I got to do for extra credit, buddy? Huh? Now, I want to thank the Fayette Chamber for hosting this event. There's no sure sign of spring in Fayette County, like the annual legislative event from the Chamber. I also want to thank the PA Chamber. Aaron, thank you for the kind words. I do, even though Aaron, he lives in Harrisburg now, so I still do get to see him. He will frequent my office a lot to let me know the agenda for the PA Chamber, which is obviously a good agenda, an agenda that helps all small businesses back here. And I also want to thank Penn State Fayette, like the senator. This was also my alma mater. I also had the privilege of playing baseball here for a couple of years, which every representative and senator that plays in the annual charity softball game gets to hear about my playing days at Penn State Fayette. So I just want to say that it's an honor to work with everybody sitting next to me here and in this room and the county commissioners, right? So that's the point of a chamber, is us working together as a community to move this county forward. That's what we do as a chamber. It's to better all of us. It's to better our community. It's to better the businesses here. Since I've been in office, I like to say that we've seen a lot of growth and movement forward in this county, but I think one of the commissioners said it earlier, that it's because of the team. It's the team of us sitting here, it's the team of the commissioners, it's the team of all of you in those seats, right? And that's what it takes to go forward. And I feel like in this county that we do have a good team to push forward and to continue to move us forward. I'd like to reiterate what the senator said. I don't know if we'll get through all the questions here today, but please keep in mind that we are accessible outside of this venue. If you have questions, if you have a specific question about a bill or legislation or something you'd like to see or funding, please do not hesitate reach out. And with that said, again, thank you all very much for having me here today.
Okay, so first I'm going to switch you out to a microphone with full batteries. Okay, so we do have quite a few questions in the room today, and I will start with a question from our friends at Maitri Medicinals. Oh, there you are. Mark will bring you a microphone. Hang on.
Hi, I'm Marissa, and I know I got to actually sit with you at the last chamber event and got to talk to you a little bit about what I do. I have been in the industry since it has started in PA. I know Pat, you were actually in the photo with me when we opened my tree. My question is, last night President Biden actually spoke on the cannabis reform and talked about how it should be available for the well-being of everybody. My question is, all the states around us are pretty much recreational now, and I just wanted to know what is the outlook for PA, and is there anything we could do at Maitri to educate you or the community how important it is to just kind of open it all up in Pennsylvania to be rec?
It's not as hot as the last. I don't like this one, Muriel.
Try this.
That's better. All right, ever since I was first running for office, I've been a big supporter of medical cannabis, medical marijuana, because of the effect it has on especially seizure control for young children. It was a major push. I was with those moms that were camped out in Harrisburg all those months and months and months waiting for passage. And it was a lot of back and forth. I've been a big supporter of that. I don't know that yet in the Pennsylvania Senate do we have the votes yet to be able to move into full adult use. And there's three things that I think personally, as I have my own personal views on this as well, but a lot of my Senate colleagues agree. But we have some three things yet we have to watch for. First of all, it's still a Schedule I narcotic. That has to change. We can't. It causes all kinds of problems, all kinds of banking problems. I know I don't have to reiterate that to you. You understand. The second one is one of the most important is we don't have a way to measure intoxicity of THC yet with a solid metric. We have that for alcohol. You pull over. I don't know what's happening. We have that metric for alcohol, 0.08. We know where that line is. The officers know that. Everyone knows that. But right now, we don't have that for THC. So it's a major problem. We can tell that you've used it, but we don't know if you're still under the effects of it. So that, we don't have that yet. And the third one is dealing with the black market, but that's something that's going to be very difficult to fight. But those are the three issues, and that's what we're looking at here. I know the governor, in his proposal for the budget, he was booking in the second year out like $235 million from recreational marijuana in part of his budget. But again, that's just his wish list. And I expect to see some bills coming out of the House that might have that as a legalization bill. But right now, I don't see how it passes the Senate. So I'll give you an update.
Okay. So first of all, I want to thank you. You reminded me that I do owe a call back, and I appreciate there was an offer for a tour, and I appreciate that, and I do plan to. I want to learn all about an issue. I will tell you that I think we may have touched on this when we sat at the same dinner table, but I am not a proponent for recreational marijuana. So I do support the medicinal use. My mom is a nurse. She's worked in a nursing home, and several years ago we had a conversation about her patients and how if somebody has dementia and they don't want to eat, or somebody that's suffering from cancer, whether it's the appetite or whether it's the pain, I do absolutely believe that there is a medical need and that should be absolutely permitted as it is under Pennsylvania law currently. I do think, though, I have major concerns about the recreational adult use. And I had some of my colleagues that kind of gave me a hard time about, like, let's call it what it is. Because to me, to refer to it as dope smoking is like, oh, that sounds bad. But that's really what you're talking about. And it has negative consequences on the family, on the workforce, on crime rates, on addiction issues. And that's why across the board, so many key stakeholders are opposed to it. I think, and I don't want to refer to my phone, but I was looking at them, everything from, the organizations of police chiefs, law enforcement officers, your pediatric, professional groups, they're all coming out with a hard no. And if you look at Colorado, and Governor Shapiro and his, budget dream list, wish list, really talked about the potential revenue. It's estimated in Colorado for every dollar of revenue that it brings in, that it's over $4 in costs to the healthcare, to traffic accidents, to the criminal system, to homelessness and addiction issues. So if the whole reason that Governor Shapiro is supporting it is for purposes of revenue, the overall negative consequence, far outweighs any increases in revenue. But I do truly believe on a personal level that it is the wrong way for this state to go. I think that even as a freshman in the House, it will pass the House right now with the majority-minority party in the House. Hopefully, the Senate is our safe gap. Now, I do believe, and there's different levels. When you're talking about marijuana, it's flat out illegal for both medicinal and recreational. Some states, Second Avenue is okay. It's which Pennsylvania is right now. It's okay for medicinal uses. Then there's another branch about, well, we're going to decriminalize it, which means, and these different sections could be overlapping, but I do think in terms of decriminalization, there needs to be a conversation, because particularly with the overcrowding issues in our public jails right now, I don't think that if you get caught with a small amount of marijuana that you should be doing jail time. And I think that is an appropriate area, that there needs to be conversation about that. But I'm always going to tell you how I feel about a particular issue. So, with that though, I welcome the opportunity to learn more about the industry on the medicinal side. So, thank you.
Yeah, I'll just follow up quickly. I don't want to repeat everything the representative and the senator said, but in my opinion, there's three major hurdles, right? And first of all, we haven't seen a proposal. The governor has advocated for this. There's no bill introduced to be able to say about the plan in Pennsylvania. So even though the governor's advocating it, there's no plan. And I know this because we were just in appropriation hearings asking about it, and there was no plan given to us. So what I'm telling you is what I just asked the state police in appropriation hearings. And one, if Pennsylvania legalizes marijuana, is it still illegal federally? And the answer is yes. So even though your state police may turn, they may turn their head, federally, you can still be charged. If you have simple possession federally, is up to a year in prison and $1,000 fine. So that will still exist. So it will not be legal even if you legalize it in Pennsylvania. It'll still be illegal federally. And that's just simple possession, first offense. The second is what the senator mentioned. Probably one of my biggest issues with it would be DUI enforcement, right? Again, the state police didn't have an answer. As far as they know, there is no current technology. There may be emerging technology, I don't know about it, but there's no technology that I'm aware of that you would be able to say, okay, this person has the acceptable level of THC in their system. They're fine to operate a motor vehicle. So that's an issue. And the third one is an issue that we've had with medical marijuana, which I did support. And that is gun ownership. Because of the federal law, you are now basically handing over your right to bear arms. And I think people need to understand that. So if you were, you're now committing a federal crime by having a firearm and possession of marijuana. So that, and especially in our area, that has one of the highest percentage of gun ownerships in the entire United States of America, that's a problem. So thank you.
And as a side note, I know you said this, the state police said they will not enforce that.
Yeah.
We asked that specifically. So they will not enforce that, though you're right, it is still illegal federally.
Thank you. We touched on healthcare a little bit while we were talking about medical marijuana. And so one of the issues, and Senator Stefano knows, we've talked about this quite a bit, is some legislation that is important in the rural health perspective. And that is with certified registered nurse practitioners. And I know that's been a lot of conversation and some bills. And I know we have a question in the room. Corey Ann, you're on. Mark will bring you a mic.
So this question is directed to Pat Stefano, and if you guys want to chip in too, you guys can. We'd love to hear from you, Pat, like how you feel on the position of nurse practitioners practicing independently. We feel that it's very important to oral health for patients to have access to care. Practicing family medicine and psychiatry myself, I work out here in Fayette County, I see how important it is to be here for these patients so that way they're able to get the care that they deserve. So just wondering your position on that.
Certainly. Thank you. And we do have a bill in the committee that I chair, that's Senate Bill 25 from Senator Barlotta from Washington County that gives nurse practitioners full licensure practice. And right now that bill is stalled. There's a big battle, as I mentioned, between the architects and the interior designers. There's a battle between nurse practitioners and the doctors that they work with, the medical society. So there's a big battle there. It's a political battle, but there is a battle. So I was trying to navigate between all these different groups and the battles that are going on. And we were looking at different avenues. I knew there was a pilot study that was supposed to be done a couple years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, that would help prove and show why full practice authority is possible and how it helps in rural America. And I know that didn't go into place. That was rejected. And then we've offered a couple other solutions. One of them, and this came from nurses from Bedford County that I was meeting with. In a lot of our rural areas, the nurses the doctors that the nurses collaborate with are retiring, and there aren't anybody to take their place. So we were offering an amendment to put in as a way to put the proverbial camel's nose under the tent, is to say if there are no collaborating doctors in your area and you've done your 3 years of collaboration, then we could offer full practice authority. And that was rejected. So right now, I don't see a path forward. What I'm looking for, and something else that's a sideline, is we've had trouble getting this through the House previously in previous sessions. So we're waiting now to see if the House can lift a different version of the bill. If they pass it and it comes over to the Senate, then we're going to reevaluate. So that is the landscape. I know it's a lot of inside baseball, but that's exactly what's happening and where we are. Do we have a rural health problem? Yes, we do. And I want to make sure that this bill addresses that problem when it finally passes.
Yeah, I can't speak on the Senate bill and the intricacies there, but I am a co-sponsor on the House version of the bill. I'm friends with Representative Cabell, and I believe Representative Topper previously had this bill. I've co-sponsored it in the past, so it is a concept I personally favor. I think there's 25 or 26 other states that allow it, and I understand that. Again, I'm not commenting on the Senate version of the bill. I don't have knowledge of that one. But I do know on the House version that I do support, and if it comes up for a vote in the House, I'll be a yes on it.
I'm also in support of the House bill. I think that often government red tape gets in the way. There's an issue. We know it's an issue. Everybody in this room knows it's an issue. Everybody in Harrisburg knows it's an issue. Let's address the issue. The bill in no means gives these medical providers, the nurse practitioners, a get-out-of-jail-free card. They're still expected to maintain the highest levels of care. So why not do the right thing and let's get it through.
Wonderful, thank you. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to move from healthcare to another industry in Fayette County that's very important, and that is our tourism industry. So we actually have a couple of questions in the room, but first I will call on Ann Nemanick from Go Laurel Highlands.
Thank you. The governor has a lot of office, and he has a lot of issues that he's really elevated, and outdoor recreation is one of those. Congratulations to Fayette County for hosting the announcement of a new Office of Outdoor Recreation in Collinsville. I think that that bodes well to the recreational assets that are here in Fayette County. How do you see this working through the budget? It seems travel and tourism is getting a nice lift, but how do you view outdoor recreation and maybe some of the challenges that a new office would face in the future?
It doesn't matter. I was just trying to rotate, that's all. Yeah. You didn't have to go first each time. That's a great question. I will speak on behalf of my side of the aisle, right? The challenges that you will see. And by no means am I knocking the program. I'm just speaking in generalities here. Any creation of a new government board position or entity is going to raise question marks, right? Because it's now more government. And so I fully support outdoor recreation. In fact, that's what I do in my free time, right? I love being outside in the outdoor recreation that we have here, whether it's canoeing, hiking, hunting, and fishing. It does have to be a conversation of the budget in a whole, but as far as what issues that you could see going forward, I think that, again, I'm speaking for my side, it's that you are now creating another branch, another part of your growing government. That's what people are going to identify that as. Again, I'm by no means knocking the importance of recreation, outdoor recreation in our area. I think it's one of the highlights of Fayette County. I think it's one of our best selling points is our outdoor recreation, yet our proximity to a major metropolitan city in the United States of America. I think it's one of our best selling points that we have a Hyatt in Pittsburgh, within an hour. So I do think that's a great highlight. But I would say the growth and expansion of government and the threat of seeing it, is it going to be more red tape? So it'll all be details, right? The devil's in the details and how that goes on with the budget itself. I think, as June comes on and the details are ironed out, and the negotiations begin, I think you'll have more details about it.
Well, from my opinion, as we all know, our number one industry in Pennsylvania, of course, is agriculture, but our number two industry is tourism. So I do applaud the focus on outdoor. In fact, I want their new department to be headquartered here in Fayette County, because I think that we have the prime outdoor recreation right here, especially in the 32nd district. So you take all of Fayette and Somerset and Bedford, put them all together, man, you've got quite a combination. So I want all of Pennsylvania coming here. So I think in that position, I don't know if it's so much about dollars as it is connecting and making sure we're connecting everybody together, making sure that DCNR and all our parks are working together with that new director. And then that's connecting to all the different counties. And then that's connecting all the trails, because that's what the trails do. They connect everybody. So I'm looking forward to this as an opportunity to shine a light on what we do. And I'm going to lean on the gentleman, and I'm blanking on his name right now, and I've talked to him so many times, but I want him to know that this is the first place he should be in connecting everything. And just as a side note, all my colleagues have a special name for me for this district. They call me the resort senator because I have so many great resorts. And I said, yes, it's one of the best places to be. So come and visit us all the time. Because from Bedford Springs to Hidden Valley to Seven Springs to Falling Water to Great Allegheny Passage, you just go down the list. There are so many great things to do here. And that's what great. So when we have our planning sessions, Sometimes they'll come here to Fayette County and plan. We've been here twice now, and they all love it. They said, this is such a beautiful place. And I said, exactly right. I'm glad you see it that way. That's the way we see it.
When you hear tourism, you really have to take a step back and think tourism has tentacles that goes out. I mean, you could talk about the economic impact. You know, when you think of, or here in this area with the outdoor recreation being a big part of our local tourism, what a positive impact that has both on physical and mental health. And if we can promote those things and bring the tourism in, and then that increases jobs, and then in turn, you know, not only can your locals enjoy it themselves, but they're appreciating revenue from outside sources. And it just all boils down to a better quality of life for our people that are living here, not just the people that are visiting here. And Fayette County has such a rich geographic beauty with our mountains and our lowlands and the historical significance and our ties all the way back to the French and Indian War. I think it's very important that we recognize that and that we don't look at tourism as an isolated thing, because it's not. It affects the local economy, as I said, mental health, physical health, and it's important that we recognize that. As a freshman, I will tell you, it was really hard, and Representative Warner and I have talked about this. We in Senator Stefano's district as well, obviously, his overlaps both of ours. I mean, we have municipalities that don't have appropriate sewage, that their water's brown, and it's really hard to think, okay, in terms of taxpayer money, what should the priority be? But as a freshman representative, I had to remind myself and frankly learn that there's different buckets of money for different things. Is that ideal? No, and if I'm being completely honest, I would prioritize a community having safe drinking water or functioning sewage over some of these other, wants rather than needs. But the system that we're dealing with is there's different buckets of money, and money that's available for tourism is not in the same bucket of money that's for infrastructure. And we have to recognize that those are the rules that we're playing by. So as long as that's the case, I'm always going to do my best to support our local municipalities and our local groups that are reaching out. And just as a reminder too, there is grant money available, whether it's infrastructure or tourism. So make sure you're reaching out to your representatives or your local municipal leaders and learning about those grants and how we can help you. Typically, from our perspective, that's advocating through grant support letters and to our teams. But it's important to know that that's a resource available to you.
My little pitch in there is outdoor recreation is awesome, and we have so much of it here. We want to keep people coming here. We also have arts, culture, and history, so keep those priorities for us.
As a side note, I am the co-chair of the Arts and Culture Caucus as well for the entire state, so I wanted to put that out there.
Awesome. We're going to stay on recreation for just a minute. Todd Miner is here, and he has a question to ask.
Hello, thank you all for being here. This is for you, Representative Warner. You recently sponsored House Bill number 2076 regarding the ATV and snowmobile use on local roads. It's currently written, this bill gives local authorities the ability to allow ATV and snowmobile use on local and state roads and gives them the ability to close the roads to vehicles or to allow ATV, snowmobile, and cars to share the roads. Can you explain the rationale behind this bill and why you feel it's important to our constituents?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a bill that I did introduce. It's something, this is the first year that I introduced it with after a lot of feedback from ATV, snowmobile users in the area. So the way that the law exists right now, and Todd, you're a township supervisor, you know that if a road is in your district, if you want to designate that road for ATV use, it has to be approved by PennDOT, which can often be a tedious. You said it, I didn't, Todd. But yeah, it is. It's a problem. There's a lot of hoops. There's a lot of red tape, right? So this would allow Todd, our local government, to now decide what portions of a road could be used and also not used for ATV use, regardless if that's a state road or a local road, okay? So, prime example, maybe there's a part of a state road that goes through a local road that they had for ATV use. You wouldn't be legally, you would not be able to have any ATV usage on the state portion of the road unless you had the PennDOT approval. They would now be able to approve it. I know that there are some people that have argued that you're now expanding ATV use on roads, and people might not like that. But to that I also say that say there's a section of a state road that now all of a sudden had a bunch of houses built on it, or there's a playground. These guys can now decertify that as an ATV use road. So it's good on both ends. It's good if you support ATV usage, and it could also be good if you don't like ATV usage. But hitting back on recreation, I mean, we have to identify that there are a lot of people that like to ride in this area. If the road, now mind you, this does not apply to highways. You're still not going to be able to take them out on highways, major roads, right? So, but we also have transportation funding issues, right? So you're now entering a whole nother group of people, a revenue source, right, for license and registration. So I just think it's good on many fronts. Again, on recreation, but mainly for local control. My opinion is that these guys know the roads, they know the situation a lot better than somebody that may have never even been out in the district, sitting in somewhere in Harrisburg. So that's my rationale behind the bill.
I'll add to that briefly. Several years ago, I did work on an ATV snowmobile issue. Whenever there was a registration of either of those, it went into one pot for DCNR, and then they would put out the grants. So 80% of ATV riders were paying their registration, but 80% of the money for trail development went to snowmobiles. And there was a discrepancy there, disparity. So the bill that I got passed into law, it was probably about 6 years ago or 7, that bifurcated that fund. So ATV money goes into ATV funds, snowmobile goes into snowmobile funds, and those trails then can get grant money in proportion. What that was supposed to do, and now along with your legislation, this is for outdoor recreation and this is for development, recreational development, is other states have their recreational trails, and the trails are on private property. A lot of times to get from one part of the trail to the next, you have to cross a municipal road. And your legislation will help solve that problem here in Pennsylvania, so we can build these trails like the other states have that are bringing in millions and millions of dollars as recreation, as tourism. So this is important. This is not so people can ride up and down the roads. This is so we can connect private property. And so I'm in support of your bill and hope that it passes forward.
I don't know that I've looked at the specific language of this bill, and I'm glad that Representative Warner pointed out that this would not apply to your state highways, because obviously you have some safety concerns there. But broadly speaking, I will always support local control. And I think that to Representative Warner's point, who better than your local, whether it's, I'm assuming it would be township officials in this instance, to say, yeah, ATV usage is appropriate or not appropriate for this particular road. And I'm thinking of even the municipality that I live in, that there's multiple dirt roads that, that they're riding on their ATVs now anyway. And there's always that fear about law enforcement. When realistically speaking, out of all the criminal actions that are out there in this world, should we really be utilizing our law enforcement to prosecute people that are, in my situation, I live on a 10-acre farm, and I live on 10 acres, half mile down the road is our 50-acre farm. And I'll plead the fifth on whether or not there's any ATV use on that dirt road that connects the two. But I think it's very important that our local officials, that this is a decision for them to make. And if the local community members aren't happy with it, it's not set in stone. They have to respond to their constituents.
I just want to follow up real quick, because the senator brought up a great point. if this bill would be enacted, you're not going to see ATVs riding up and down roads in front of your house, right? So one, these are mainly for back roads that Charity was speaking of. And the majority of the use that this bill would pertain to as far as easily allowing access is what the senator just mentioned, crossing a portion of a road to get to trails, right? That's where you'll see more use for this legislation than anything else. We'd be able to legally access and combine different portions of the road. So you're looking at back roads, minimal use where people will be crossing. That would be the main application for this. So thank you.
Thank you. We're getting close on time. I feel like we could just go all day. There's so many really good questions in the room, and it's hard to limit it. We are going to ask one more question and then start to wrap up. But I know that Mary is in the room and that she has a question for you regarding the disabled community.
Hi, my name is Mary Patrick, and I am the employment specialist at Transitional Paths Independent Living, which is the SIL for Washington Green and Fayette counties. And this is a bunch of our other staff. What is being done to increase services for people with disabilities in the county and the general area?
Want to start? That's a broad question. I'm trying to give a succinct answer. It's in every budget, though, and this is something I always strongly believe in. So many times we fund different programs that don't have an effect or effect in the wrong place. This is one of the areas that we should be. I strongly believe in making sure that those programs are properly funded, especially in the intellectual disabilities and all the mobility issues. These are areas that got what is government is for, is what we're here for, to help take care of those who need the help the most. Sometimes they get spread a little too thin, but I won't pontificate on any of that. But I can't give you any particular numbers of the current budget proposal right now without digging into the line items, which I'll be glad to do for you. And it's something I can watch for you as we come in through the budget process, as we just finished our hearings this past week. We have 3 weeks of budget hearings, both for appropriations, both in the House and in the Senate. And now the work will begin to finalize all those numbers and then get to end of June when we're supposed to constitutionally have a budget in place that is balanced by June 30th. I don't anticipate that happening this year, but that is when all the final numbers are in place. So I'll be glad to share those with you as we get closer, and definitely whenever we have it finally passed and in place. So I'll be glad to do that. Make sure you reach out to my office so I can get contact information and I can get that to you.
So, do you want to answer, or you want? I can redirect a little bit that might help.
Please.
Okay. So one of the questions, like when I said that was the last question, I lied. Okay. So I have one more. One of the questions that's been asked a couple of times to me over the last week or so in a couple of different ways. Maybe you can help explain. And that is the difference really between the budget process, the Appropriations Committee. So the governor presents a budget. What's the duty of the Appropriations Committee? How does it all fit together to make those decisions?
Well, the way it's supposed to work and what reality is are usually two different things. But the governor makes his proposal. This has been going on forever as I can remember. The first week, for one of the first Tuesdays of February, the governor always gives his budget address, which is something he develops with all his secretaries across all the departments. And what they do is develop a plan of what they call it the governor's wish list. This is what the governor wants to do. The governor is our state executive in the executive branch, and he is the one to chart our path forward. And that's what he does. So he presents, I should he or she, but it's been a he, charts our path forward and makes a proposal. The following weeks then, 3 weeks of the Appropriations Committee, and our job, and I sit on appropriations, Representative Warner does,
I want to be.
She wants to be. I'm about ready to be done with it. The department secretaries come in. There's usually 2 per day, and they come in before the committee to present their budget. We have their budget numbers in front of us, and our job is to ask them questions. Why are they doing X, Y, and Z? What is the plan for their plan? How do they expect to execute it? Why are they spending money over on this particular item? Why not spend anything over here? And this whole system is transparent to you. You can go on websites and watch these hearings live. You can go back and watch them again if you wish to. I don't know why, but if you want to, if you can't sleep at night, this will put you to sleep, but you can watch them and find out what questions are being asked and what answers you're getting back. And a lot of times the answers we get back, we'll get back to you. We get a lot of that. And that is all recorded. So we know every time we've asked a question and they don't know the answer and they're going to get back to us, we ask for it back. We don't wait for them to give it to us. We ask for it back. We have a complete list of that. And then we can also clip it and send it to them and say, you said you would do this, so here it is. So that is the process. We ask all these questions, we compile all that information, and then we start negotiating behind the scenes. And it's usually leadership of the House and the Senate working together with these answers to the questions that we asked to develop the final budget and what it is able to pass. What part of this budget will it actually be able to get 102 votes in the House, 26 votes in the Senate, and the governor to sign? Those are the 3 magic numbers, and this whole process is to define that. As messy as it is, that's how it works. Anything to add? Did I miss something?
No, I think the senator summed it up pretty well. The only problem with being on appropriations is sometimes you forget that you're on TV late at night. And I had Mark Rayfall kindly tell me next time one of your colleagues is up speaking, make sure your hand isn't on. But Mark, I was looking at my notes, by the way. I just want you to know that. Care how late at night it was, I was looking at my notes. Yeah, so it's a long, tedious process being on the appropriation committees while we have the hearings. But just to summarize what the senator said, it's almost like it almost becomes like a negotiation for buying a car, right? I think the governor each year that I've been there has always started at a higher number than what has actually happened, because we negotiate on the other side and say, no, there's no way, and then you kind of. You have to come on in a compromise somewhere, and Pat said get the 26 votes in the Senate, the votes in the House, and signed into law by the governor. But it is our opportunity to interrogate and ask questions from each of the secretaries. We often get into more than budget questioning, though, because look, no matter what, I guess you can make an argument that any policy change or anything can affect the budget in some way or another. So it's kind of also our way to ask general questions about the affairs of Pennsylvania. So as Pat said, after a tenure on appropriations and the time away, Charity could probably have my seat on there going forward. But it is good to be on the committee, because you really gain an insight on how the appropriations are spent, and sometimes it still makes your head spin when you see how much money we do spend, which is why I still always advocate for the Taxpayer Protection Act. Just a little plug for my bill. But that being said, Pat summarized it very well on the difference. But like I said, it's a negotiation is ultimately what it is from the governor's initial budget address normally.
Something I want to add real quick, and I'll give it back to you. It would pertain to what we're doing today. Since we have so many members, we're limited to the time we are allowed to respond. So a lot of times the secretaries are well trained to draw their answers out. So it's our job to try to interrupt them and get a succinct answer. But we have a light that's in front of them. It's green, then it turns yellow. That means time to wrap up. When it's red, you better be shutting it down, because and for a good reason, because we want to make sure every member has a chance to ask their question. But I'm thinking to the point now, we might need those lights here.
So the nerd in me really does want to be on appropriations. But as a freshman, it's very hard to get on. So hopefully there's the next time that I can try to get in there. But I have, and Donald vouched for me, I've tried to watch those remotely. And the reason for that is it's really difficult to stay on top of every bill that's being talked about in every committee. I think on average it's over 4,000 bills that are introduced per year or per term. I'm not sure about that. But and it may be between 200 or 300 that actually you pass into law. But being on appropriations, you're diving into the issues of across every agency in the Commonwealth. So it really is a good learning opportunity, particularly as a newer member. But I think it's important to note too, last year when I sat through the budget address, it was almost offensive. It was like a campaign speech. And a lot of politicians are really great about throwing out key buzzwords. But I judge people by their actions, not by their words. And you have to make sure that as our gentleman Aaron spoke about earlier, there were things that have been promised or proposed that from the governor that we've not seen action on, and you've got to watch that. But I was reminded in conversation this morning too that it's his wish list, and it's the beginning of negotiations. And pulling from my legal career, and as a new lawyer, this was hard because I thought, you know what, this is an equitable amount. This is what's justified. This is what I'm going to demand. And what I learned then is everybody assumes you're asking for double what you really want, that there's a dance in negotiations. So I have to remind myself that even though the governor's budget wishes seem unrealistic, it is the beginning of a negotiation process. So you've got to keep that in mind, whether he's a politician or a lawyer or however you want to label him. So thank you. Oh, I do have to add, I'm circling back to the very beginning. I too am a Penn State alumni, and I started here when I was 15 or 16, but I have one up on both of these guys because my daughter is a student here in her second year of nursing. So, and one other shout out is to the chamber. Thank you for putting this on. If you are not working with our chamber, it's your loss. And I say that frankly, in talking to my colleagues across the state, some of them are like, oh, my chamber doesn't do very much. And I'm like, what are you talking about? My chamber is on fire. So thank you for that and for everything you guys do.
If any of you if there's another bill that you're working on or anything that you want to take a minute just to put forth, go ahead and do that, and then I'll wrap up when you're finished.
Certainly. I have a handful that are getting ready to be introduced, actually. But the one that I think is very particular I want to talk about, we were talking about workforce. And I'm also, I mentioned arts and culture, but I'm also co-chair of the Early Childhood Education Caucus. And working with our early childhood care educators. That is a major problem we're having. We have a problem with educators all across the Commonwealth and all across the country. We have a shortage coming, and we all know that. But where it's affecting workforce is childcare. And Pennsylvania doesn't have any idea who our child care workers are. So working with the organizations through the Early Childhood Education Caucus and the Learning Lamp and all these childhood education groups, were formulated along with my colleague, Senator Culver, from what county? Just blanked on her county, but she's out past Harrisburg, actually married to Tom Culver from Connellsville, who I went to school with since kindergarten, so I thought I'd make that link. But her and I are working together on this early childhood education workforce commission. That bill will be introduced Monday. And it's hopefully we'll get through the process quickly so we can get this through the Senate and then to the House and to the governor, form a commission that will study who our educators are, where they're coming from, what motivates them, and what's their path forward, so we can actually develop a plan in Pennsylvania on how we're going to keep our early childhood education providers open. Because right now we have a lot of open child care providers, but not all the rooms are full because they don't have enough educators. And some of the reimbursement rates that come from the state they can work someplace else for a lot more. So we need to find out how that's going to work. So that's one of the biggest bills I'm working on right now to get that introduced. It's been a long time coming, but it takes a long time to get through the bill writing process.
So, Senator, we have some major child care advocates in the room today, and I know every single one of them out there is appreciative of the work that you're doing for our little ones. I probably talked to 2 or 3 people while I was roaming from table to table that wanted to make sure that we somehow hit on the importance of early education and taking care of our little ones.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what Charity said. Thank the chamber again. I mean, they are on the ball for things. You guys are out there advocating and cheerleading for our county, and it is fantastic to see the enthusiasm that we have in our chamber working here together. I have a laundry list of bills that I'm working on. Just off the top of my head, we had the ATV bill, another transportation bill that I've been working on. It's called the red light bill. So I don't know if a lot of people know, but Pennsylvania is one of the only states that requires their local municipalities to pay for the installation and upkeep of a red light on a state road, even if it's in the municipality. So if PennDOT determines in Todd Miners Township that they're putting up a red light, Todd now has to pay for that. Todd's paying for the upkeep of it, even if it's on a state road, even if both intersections are on a state road. So I believe that if it's a state road, the state should be paying for the upkeep. It would be huge for our municipalities. A lot of them, it's a very, very big expense. So locally for the business industry, one bill that I'm going to be rolling out here again soon, and it's the technical sides of it is become difficult. I'm trying to make the bill fair, but coming from a small business background, and this was kind of highlighted during the pandemic, right? That a lot of you guys that have your businesses organized in a corporation, and I always like to remind people that every corporation isn't Walmart, right? There are a lot of small businesses are filed as corporations, various different corporations. And one of the issues I've had were the small business owners that had to pay into unemployment compensation, but if their businesses completely failed, or there were circumstances where they weren't working, were not able to then reap any benefits from unemployment compensation. So that's a change that I've been working on over the years. Again, there's a lot of technical aspects to that make the bill and the language of the bill very difficult. But I'm trying to highlight the change so that it's for the small business owners that paying unemployment compensation would then be able to accept unemployment compensation. On the higher level, every year, a lot of people have heard me advocate for this legislation, and I do all the time when we're talking about budgeting and everything else. The amount of money that the government spends is astronomical. Astronomical. We do not realize how much money to try to conceptualize the federal government and the state government's budget is hard. And to highlight something that Charity said earlier, that frustrates me too, right? Because I've always been like, I always look at the budgeting on a macro level, and in our positions, unfortunately, we can't do that. But when I'm looking on at a macro level, I'm like, yeah, why do we have funding for something that may not be, I'm not saying unimportant, but I got people in my district that don't have cell phone service, don't have broadband, and their landline phones are just cut. So it's so hard for me to then advocate for funding to say, hey, look, we got this funding, and I'm like, for maybe some pet project, and you're just like, man, this is tough. Anyway, my bill would limit the state government spending by a rate of inflation and population growth. In other words, if the 3-year average population growth in Pennsylvania was 2% and the 2-year average of inflation in Pennsylvania was 2%, you'd be able to increase your budget by 4%. And I do believe that is a very fair and adequate way to try to keep our budgets in check. So like a budget year like right now, when we have a lot in our reserve and rainy day fund, that we don't go spend it all, because that is what's being advocated right now. And I'd much rather keep that in the rainy day fund or give it back to you all as a tax cut rather than spend it all. Thank you.
Bring us home, Charity.
As a side note, just real quick, no, you derailed my train. I'll come back.
So one of the things that I suffer from Wonder Woman complex. Okay, so if I'm at home, I'm not doing my job enough. If I'm at my job, I'm not being the mom and wife that I need to be. So, and I say that just because I'm going to tell you that I feel guilty because I haven't introduced more legislation. But I have to remind myself there's a reason for that. I think that too much government is a bad thing, and I think what you often find, particularly if it's an election year, is that there's all these bills that are introduced that in Harrisburg. Everybody knows that realistically that bill's not going anywhere, but it gets the member, whether they're on the House side or the Senate side, it gets them their glory in terms of a press release, and it looks like they're doing something, even though that's about it. But I truly do believe that the less government interference, and again, we've got a duty to protect our citizens, to promote the welfare of our community members. Laws that are curbing government overreach are a good thing. So although I've jumped on a co-sponsor a number of bills, I've only been the prime sponsor of 2, and one was a very important issue that got me in some hot water with people on my side of the aisle, but it was a bill that would prohibit injection wells from being used for the disposal of frack water across the Commonwealth. And and basically, if you're not familiar with it, in Nicholson Township, which is one of the poorest municipalities in my district, there was a permit that was being requested through the EPA to bring millions of gallons of this toxic frack water from states as far as Kentucky and to inject it in one particular farm in Nicholson Township. And there were a lot of concerns with that. And I was really proud of the community and our commissioners. Our commissioners all took a stand and were active. The community member really rallied. And it's really, it's a poor municipality. Statistically speaking, is probably undereducated in comparison, but they rallied and they put up a good show, and the company ended up withdrawing their application. But that was one bill that I proposed to prohibit. I think that there are other alternatives that are in the works and exploration. Now, I want to preface that I am not anti-fracking. I believe that the Commonwealth sits on a gold mine in terms of natural resources. And if Governor Shapiro wants to be the competitive guy that he claims to be, he needs to tap into that resource. But we need to do it in a responsible and environmentally responsible way. And I did not think that this injection well that was being proposed was that. The other bill that I proposed was a bill that would require government officials that are accused of sexual harassment, if there's a payoff through a settlement or a judgment, that it would give the state the ability to go after their personal funds. And I saw this in my personal law practice. So, a lawyer in small town America, I did a little bit of everything. What I was most passionate about, though, was my civil rights and constitutional law stuff. Everything from First Amendment retaliation to excessive force to false arrest. The prisoners can vouch that the commissioners can vouch that I've sued them, a number of, not them individually, but the county because of some various issues. Sorry about that. That was not a Freudian slip. Yeah, so this particular bill that I proposed was because in my private practice, I saw particularly cases when there was direct involvement, like excessive force or false arrest, that the defendants had no skin in the game. They didn't care that they were being sued. There was no accountability because taxpayer funds paid the victims for what happened. So this particular bill, and I'm really shocked why it's not moved, because I don't know how anybody could be opposed to this. If you're a government official and you're using your position to sexually harass or assault somebody, and that leads to a settlement or particularly a judgment where the court or a jury has said, yeah, you're liable for this and this is the amount you're liable for, why should taxpayers, hardworking taxpayer dollars, go to support that? So hopefully we see some movement on that. But I'm going to give it back to Pat now.
Okay. I remember what I want to say. I'll wrap it up real quick. Our reserve funds last year We talk about how important this is. Saved the state $450 million just because of our better interest rates. So it's a key factor, and make sure we maintain that because it helps run the government if something goes wrong. But second of all, it puts us in a great financial position. And Representative was talking about vast amounts of money. So I wanted to share this with you because it really helps kind of visualize it. So if dollars were seconds, if you had $1 million or a million seconds, that would last you 11 and a half days. But if you had $1 billion in seconds, it'd be 32 years. 1 trillion seconds would be 32,000 years. That is the difference between these amounts of money that we're talking about, because governments throw them out like they're nothing. But if you visualize it that way, that's a huge difference between them. Muriel?
You know, I said before how proud I am to work with the commissioners every day. I am equally as proud to be able to work with all three of you. You certainly have Fayette County's best interest at heart, and I'm proud to consider, you know, that you are partners with us and colleagues, and we all work together to make this area better. So I want to thank you absolutely for being here. So thank you, Aaron, for spending the afternoon with us here in Fayette. Not knowing that you were from Westmoreland, I have this whole pitch to you about coming back to the Laurel Highlands, which are absolutely beautiful, and spending lots of time, but you do, and I'm happy about that. So you're welcome back here with us anytime. Thank you to our elected officials and legislators. You're all doing great work on behalf of Fayette County. To all of you in the room today, I thank you for being here, sharing your concerns. I know we didn't get to every single question. I would encourage you, if those questions are near and dear to your heart, to reach out to these folks. If you need that connection, call our office and we'll make that happen. So a little bit of formality here at the end. Today's event was recorded by the Fayette County Public Relations Initiative and will be aired on Fayette County Television, which is Breezeline Channel 77 and QCall on their online base. It's also available to view on Fayette County Television's YouTube page. So when you're bored later tonight, go watch it, okay? Or just watch it. I know, but didn't you watch the Appropriations Committee over and over again? So we can just watch this over and over? Yeah, absolutely. See, there you go. So finally, I do want to say thank you again to all of our sponsors today. It is because of our businesses who step up that give us the opportunity to do these kind of events. I wish everybody a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the Laurel Highlands. Thank you, everyone.